Welcome to the Call to Freedom. It is Thursday, May the 2nd, 2019, and I am your host, as always, Aria, author of Dancing in Hellfire, which you can find on Amazon. And I'm joined in the studio, as always, by
Michael Hampton from cryptotip.org.
And you brought in a super disturbing thing, is how I would characterize it.
It's amazingly disturbing.
It is. It's probably, and I've seen a lot of disturbing things in my life, right? But this is probably one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. And it's not because, the content is necessarily disturbing. It's because it's a child conveying this message, a child who has been terrorized to this degree.
Yes, this is a victim of terrorism. Absolutely.
So, if you haven't heard, a child named Kaylee, who is sort of a symbol for anti-guns or something, I don't know, walked some adults through a lockdown. And by walking, I don't mean the adults also participated in the drill. She
explained it.
Yeah, she explained it to them. It's only about 2 minutes long, the video, and we're going to go to it because you have to hear this little girl saying these things yourself. I cannot possibly convey how horrifying it is until you listen to it. So let's go to that real quick.
In the event of an active shooter. We're going to bring in a special guest. She's actually an expert on this, and she's going to be leading our team building event. This is Kaylee.
If there was an active shooter, you'd all be dead. When you talk out loud, the shooter can tell where you are and where you're hiding. Sometimes we play the game who can stay quietest the longest, so we all remember. You can try and protect your friends by pushing the tables and chairs against the doors. You also have to put a piece of paper over the door window so they can't see in. And you can't cry. It gives away your position and your hiding spot. And if you're in the bathrooms, you have to stand on the toilet seat and crunch down so they can't see your feet and they can't see your head, so they don't know that you're in there.
That's crazy.
Try to listen for things that could help the police. For example, if you hear a lot of bangs like bang, 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 the shooter might be down the hall. Or if you hear louder ones like bang, 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 he could be right outside your door. If the shooter comes in the room, screaming won't do anything. You have to try and fight back. If you can't escape, we get taught the emergency window escape plan, where you have to break a window, put clothes over the frame, and climb through. Our teacher used to sing a song to make it easy to remember. Lockdown, let's all hide. Lock the doors and stay inside. Crouch on down, don't make a sound, and don't cry or you'll be found.
That is so horrifying. I don't even have words to describe how horrifying it is that they have terrorized this child to this degree.
That is so dark. That is, kids of that age should not be exposed to that kind of horror.
No, and this isn't the first time we've, heard something about this. There was the 9-year-old who would practice lockdowns in his bedroom. He would suddenly stop playing to say active shooter and hide under his bed and things like that.
I know. We talked about that, last week?
I think it was longer ago than that. I think it's probably been about a month. I don't recall exactly when. But yes, it is absolutely propagandist, anti-gun propaganda brought to us by March for Our Lives, which started in 2018 by survivors of the massacre at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. I don't remember the details of that particular school shooting.
Yeah, I don't remember which one that was.
Let's see. Oh, it was the Parkland shooting.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why they didn't refer to it as that. And I don't really remember the details of that one, but...
That's the one where the officer went and hid.
Oh, okay. Well, that's that's so problematic. That's its own issue, of course, is this idea that, the police are there to protect people. And quite clearly, when push came to shove, at least this officer was like, I should probably help take care of these kids.
But no, I have no duty to protect anybody.
No. I mean, most adults.
Just myself.
Most adults would be like, hey, I need to help these kids and protect them, even if they weren't armed.
Yeah, but this is not most adults. This is a police officer.
Yeah, but I mean, what's broken in his mind that would cause him to know that there is an active school shooter in his school, and his response to that is running and hiding?
Probably the same thing that got him hired as a cop in the first place.
That's a good point. I mean, they are trained to shoot first and ask questions later. I would expect that training to have kicked in. But there is a problem with school shootings in the United States. I'm willing to say that. They're not as common as people make out to be, but ultimately, it's a good point.
Yeah, there's a problem.
How common should they be before it's actually a problem? To me, one school shooting is one too many. I don't want kids to be shot and killed.
Nobody does.
But this sort of thing is not going to help. It's not going to prevent anyone from being murdered by some psychotic lunatic with a gun. And a lot of these people stole guns in order to do this stuff. Most of them, as I understand it, did not legally acquire the weapons, which means that gun control didn't work. They just bypassed it.
Yeah.
Generally by stealing a weapon. But the ideal solution, in my opinion, would be to arm the teachers.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing in a lot of places.
Because teachers are predominantly female, right? That's, I think, 90-something% of teachers are female, especially among elementary school students, which is where these shootings tend to occur, evidently. And I'm not trying to be sexist here, but women do have an innate biological drive to protect children. That's probably why so many are drawn to teaching elementary schools in the first place. That because I think we just sort of have a cultural bias against allowing, grown men to teach fourth grade classes and third grade classes, because I don't know of any male teachers in those age groups.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the stats.
No, it wasn't until junior high that I encountered my first male teacher. And even then they were rare. It wasn't until high school that it became more 50-50. And even then, I don't think 50-50 would be right. It was probably more like 30-70, with most of them being women. Whether that's an issue with men not wanting to teach or, just society in general not wanting men to be around kids that young, I don't know. It's not my concern. But I do think that these teachers, who are primarily women, would be more likely to actually whip out a gun and shoot a shooter, which is how you stop a bad person with a gun. You shoot them.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the cops are doing 20 minutes later.
Yeah, and that is exactly where the issue is. The cops have to travel there. And during that travel time, a lot of violence can occur. You need somebody who is already there with a gun in order to respond to it adequately and to save human life. The teachers are the best solution for that. Actually, the best solution for that would be for everybody in the school to have a gun, students included.
That's the way it used to be.
Yeah, well, it wasn't
at least
really
in high school.
You couldn't. You couldn't just walk into the classroom with your gun. Even back then,
you kept it in. You when you got to school, you put it in storage, but then you picked it up on your way out. But it was there.
Well, it's not going to do you any good if you don't have access to it. If you have to go and get it, right?
Maybe it depends on the situation. If you hear a school shooter is coming, like there's an image going around Facebook of like in 1973, student and teacher both sitting in front of the school with a rifle, waiting for the school shooter to show up.
And it never happened?
Never happened.
Well, obviously, most people are not inclined to go attempt to massacre a bunch of people if they know that the defenders are armed.
Bingo.
So arm the teachers, arm the students, arm everyone, and these school shootings will go. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, and you are invited to give us a call on the subject of school shootings or on something else. It really doesn't matter. You can do that currently by using Discord at discord.lrn.fm. The phone lines, as I understand it, are still currently down. But
sorry.
Yeah, we're working on it. So just be patient. Of course, we prefer you to call in on Discord anyway. Again, that's discord.lrn.fm. And we're talking about this child who walked people through what happens during a school shooting. And a lot of people are saying that, society is broken and that something has gone awry somewhere in society that has caused these school shootings to propagate. And, a lot has changed in the last 70 years or so when it was more or less acceptable to carry a gun to school. And I don't know to what extent they were actually allowed onto the campus.
No, some schools even had shooting ranges in the basement or whatever.
Well, see, I would have to find proof of this because my family's from rural Mississippi. It's gun-toting there, And even my father, who went to school during the 50s and 60s, could not carry his gun into the classroom in rural Mississippi. He had to leave it on a rack in his truck. And it was acceptable to drive there with it and to leave it there on the rack in his truck. But as far as taking it into the school, no, he would have been arrested, as I understand it. I haven't talked to him extensively about it, but during our hunter education program that was mandatory for us to go through for some bizarre reason, actually, now that I come to think about it, that is super weird. Why was it mandatory? Because it was rural Mississippi.
Rural Mississippi,
I guess.
You got to eat, right?
Well, I never ate deer. Actually, I did. This pastor at this Methodist church made some really awesome deer jerky that was really, really good. But other than that, I never understood the appeal people have for deer.
Venison's pretty good, actually.
Well, I guess. But, I mean, who... to me, it's too much trouble. It's a lot of trouble. It would have to be, life-changing in order for me to even want to go through the trouble of getting out there at 3 o'clock in the morning, sitting there all day, and then maybe shooting at a deer. It would have to be positively orgasmic for me to be willing to do that.
Well, I can't promise you that.
No, and neither could anyone else. So, of course, it was rural Mississippi, so I had plenty of people who were shooting deer and who occasionally, gifted me venison or something, or bacon that they made from it, whatever. But it was mandatory, and I seem to recall that they actually did bring guns on campus that day for the students to use in their, certification program or whatever. But it was overseen by the sheriffs, and I doubt that they were real guns. I think they were probably airsoft rifles or something like that.
That could be.
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
I wasn't there either. I missed that day. I don't remember why I missed that day, but I did. And, we could argue that that is where things went wrong when we started treating guns like dangerous weapons rather than defensive mechanisms. When we started treating them like, oh, these are dangerous, we have to restrict where they are allowed and where they're not allowed. Yeah. It could be argued that is where we went wrong. Because obviously you don't have a lot of examples of people trying to shoot up gun ranges and gun clubs and police stations and military air bases and things like that, places where there will be lots of armed people. Because
you occasionally get an example, but yeah, mostly not.
No, because it's counterproductive to what their aims are. If their aims are to kill people, then going somewhere where a lot of people are going to shoot at you and kill you is not going to be effective.
Yeah, just going to make you look silly before you die.
Yeah. And, that's always how it works. When somebody comes in with a gun, someone has to shoot them. That's just all there is to it. You might get lucky, be able to sneak up on the guy and stab him in the neck with a pencil or something, but that's extremely risky. By and large, they're going to shoot at him, and that's what SWAT teams do and all of that. They come in and they shoot the guy. They take them down. The problem, as we outlined, is that these SWAT teams and police, they have to both travel there and then get into position, develop a plan, and then execute that plan, all of which is rather significant in terms of delay when you consider that, for every minute that passes, this school shooter is out there murdering people. So the woman who introduced Kaylee as the event's guest calls her an expert when it comes to active shooter drills. And clearly the assembled coworkers are expecting an adult, maybe a cop or a member of the military. But no, it's a little girl, probably in the 4th or 5th grade, and you can hear them gasp when they see this girl. That first line, if there was an active shooter, you'd all be dead. That probably could have been omitted.
Yeah, probably.
Of course, she said it for shock value. And hey, little girl, I totally get shock value. But I think the overarching problem that we have right now is not school shootings. It's our overprotectiveness toward children. We put them into these schools that are increasingly identical to prisons. And they're going to become more and more identical to prisons as we have to address this school shooting thing. And what they call common sense gun control is forever elusive. Because I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's too much pushback from Americans for Democrats to ever get their way with guns. Now, that may happen in like California and Florida, and maybe not Florida, but California, New York, liberal cities on the coasts and liberal states on the coast. They may succeed in demolishing the Second Amendment rights of their citizens. But throughout most of America, it's not going to happen, more so than it's already happened. And it has happened, right? It was never intended that the government would have access to M16s and things like that, while we're limited to pistols and shotguns and AR-15s.
No, the military weapons were supposed to be in ordinary civilians' hands.
The reason there's no distinction in the Constitution is because technology then was at a point where if a man was going to go to war for his country and join the military or whatever, he would use the same gun that he used for hunting and providing for his family. So there was no distinction then between a person's weapons and a military's weapons. That didn't really come about until the Civil War and the invention of the cannon. And even then, most people could have had a cannon, I believe. I think a lot of plantation owners did, in fact, have cannons in order to protect their property from the Union. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard. And being from the South, there's a lot of romanticization around the Civil War. So that could be entirely made up. But that's when the gap between military power and civilian power really came into play. And it was never supposed to be there. And it only got worse when the cannon evolved into the tank and the jet and the nuclear warhead. I, of course, am a member of the Bear Nukes Caucus and believe that every person in the world should be able to acquire a nuclear weapon if they have the money.
I'm right there with you.
This is the Call to Freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. And before we get back into this discussion about school shootings and things like that, I said before we went out to break that I believe any individual should be able to acquire a nuclear weapon if they have the means. And people immediately assumed I was joking or being facetious or whatever. No, I am being absolutely serious because the state has nuclear weapons. And I don't believe that it's a smart idea, a good idea, or a responsible idea to allow the state to have this super weapon that absolutely unequivocally dwarfs every single weapon on the planet.
No, the government really should not be allowed to outgun its own people.
No, so if the state is going to have it, I think the people should be able to have it as well to deter the state from abusing that power. The ideal solution, because nuclear weapons, they are extremely destructive. One lunatic with a nuclear weapon could kill hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, if they dropped it in Manhattan or something like that. So they are extremely dangerous. Ideally, nuclear weapons would just go away and nobody would make them. But that cat is out of the bag. Pandora's box is open and you're not shoving it back in. It's just like the abortion thing. I'm not a fan of abortion. I'm pro-choice, but I'm not a fan of it. I don't think a woman should opt into it, but it's not my call to make. It's never going to go away. I mean, it's here to stay, and it's something that we have to deal with in a sensible and rational manner. I don't think allowing an institution that exists by the use of force and violence against people to be the sole owner of the most destructive weapon ever invented is a good thing. I think that's reckless and irresponsible, and I think it shows an unwillingness to learn from what governments have done to their own citizens throughout human history. I mean, we can see it right now in Venezuela, with the Venezuelan government using its tanks and things like that to just outgun its civilian population. After, by the way, implementing common sense gun control in 2012. Just like the Nazi regime did, they, of course, disarmed their citizens. I believe the Soviet Union disarmed theirs as well. Obviously, the Chinese have disarmed theirs. The United Kingdom has disarmed theirs. I think guns across the European Union, I think the people there would probably just be considered disarmed. I don't know. But I imagine guns are extremely difficult to acquire in the European Union. So when the government starts talking on whatever basis about restricting your right to defend yourself against government aggression, that's your sign that it's probably about time to defend yourself against government aggression.
Yeah, it's here.
And of course, we're already past that point in the United States. There's a lot to be said about guerrilla warfare tactics and things like that. But at the end of the day, we would be fighting a military that has drones, that has robots, and that has smart bombs and cluster bombs and all of these other little gadgets that are simply not feasible for the average person to own and are outright outlawed for the average person to own. So we're already outgunned. I think closing that power gap is probably the first step toward truly dialing back the state power. And the power gap is no greater than the government's ability to own nuclear weapons and our inability to own nuclear weapons. That's why anarcho-capitalists are considered dangerous and unhinged, because the McNuke thing. I want to be able to go into McDonald's and buy a McNuke.
McNuke.
To defend my
McDonald's
property.
To buy a nuke. I'd go there to buy a burger. I'd go to the ATF store to buy a nuke.
Sure.
Alcohol, tobacco, firearms store.
Sure. I mean, obviously, the McNuke thing is a joke. There's no reason whatsoever that, McDonald's would make and sell nuclear weapons. But that's just the joke, because McDonald's represents this sort of out of control consumerism that, capitalists are,
gotcha,
for some bizarre reason, all about. And you can see this every Christmas with people like Jeffrey Tucker and things like that, and people like that referring to it as capitalism myths and things like that. Totally missing the point of what capitalism is. Consumerism myths might be more appropriate, but that whole consumerism, that spending, it increases the economic strength and things like that, that's Keynesianism. I wouldn't expect Jeffrey Tucker and Tom Woods to be peddling that nonsense, but they do every Christmas.
Yeah.
They look at it as this sort of capitalist wet dream holiday when it's not. Capitalism is about savings. It's not about spending. When people spend this massive amount of money rather than saving it, what you get is Keynesianism. So we should be advising people to save, not to spend like crazy. So it's not capitalism myths, it's consumerism myths, it's Keynesian myths. But anyway, I want to tell you real quickly about the Rational Review, located at rationalreview.com. It's the Freedom Movement's daily news digest, aggregating stories from all over the internet that are of interest to libertarians and liberty-minded people. They include podcasts, videos, blogs, and news articles, and are now a source for people to receive the Call to Freedom's podcasts when we upload them. Be sure to check them out at rationalreview.com to stay up to date on all the happenings in the wider world. And seriously, if you haven't subscribed to their daily digest, you certainly should, because the headlines are just so perfect.
Yeah,
for that reason
gold.
alone, you should subscribe to the Rational Review. So we've been talking about this child who is between the 3rd and the 6th grade, evidently, who walked these adults through a school shooting drill. I keep saying walked. Talked them through would be more appropriate.
Yeah. There wasn't much walking here.
And if you weren't here for the beginning of that, it was one of the most horrifying and psychotic things I've ever seen, that someone did this to this child. And, I know the liberals would make the case that they didn't do it to the child. The fear of school shootings did this to the child. Maybe, but who put that fear of school shootings, which is a relatively uncommon act? I think we calculated the odds as being like 1 in 300,000 or something like that.
And actually, it's 1 in 600 million.
It was that high? Wow. Okay. So it's not very likely that a child is going to go through a school shooting. Yet 95% of kids throughout the United States are now going through these drills like they happen every single day in every single part of the world.
Yeah, like this is a normal event they should prepare for.
Yeah, and it obviously is not. I don't think that they should be terrorized to this point. And it shocks me that I have to say that most people don't just go, oh, you know what? We should be protecting children from this reality, not making them take a bath in it. And that's ultimately what they're doing. They have failed in their duty as guardians of these children, as parents of these children, and as teachers of these children, which is to protect these children. Nothing here qualifies as protecting them.
No, this is not protecting them. This is traumatizing them. This is turning a normal kid into a frightened, anxious, depressed. If you want to know what the next generation is going to be like, I mean...
Well, they're going to be intensely anti-gun because they've been, born and raised into this environment where they have the fear of guns just beat into them from early ages, and where they never really learned that, guns aren't really that bad for the most part. You do have kids out there who are still learning to shoot and things like that, but our society at large does teach children that guns are bad.
Yeah, they do. They do.
And they're not bad. People are bad. And people can get guns. So you should get a gun to protect yourself from bad people, whether they have a gun or not. It's a good idea. Learn how to use it and keep it on you.
And be glad you live in a place where you can.
But it's not a matter of just teaching these children how to deal with things. They are intentionally scaring them until they're traumatized, until they're willing to bow to the state and trust it to protect them. That's the goal here. That's what they're working on. And we, as a people, we have to resist that. Take your kids out of the public school. That would be the most efficient solution. This is the Call to Freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom here on LRN.FM, and we're talking about school shootings and the trauma that affects children in regard to these school shootings. And not just the trauma that affects children, but how children almost as a contagion spread that trauma to adults nearby. Because it's really hard for a person to watch that video and not be emotionally impacted to some degree and in some way. I would argue that fear is not the proper response to that. I realize a lot of people are going to see this and weep for society as a whole, saying, "Oh, I'm so sad and dejected that it's come to this. Why do we need these children walking around so terrified of school shootings and things like that? Why can't we just have common sense gun control?" But to me, I think common sense gun control involves teaching people how to use guns.
Right.
And that, this is how you shoot someone who intends to kill you. I think that would be a more effective solution, and it would certainly be less traumatic, I would argue.
A whole lot better training for a so-called active shooter.
Yeah.
How to shoot back.
Yeah, it would, because, I mean, again, that's what you do with a school shooter, or with a shooter at all, or with anyone who attempts to threaten your life. You shoot them. But before we get back into that, if you've ever wanted to have sex with prostitutes and then arrest them, or if you ever wanted to run and hide during a school shooting, or just enjoy the power rush of being a cop without all the paperwork, then you should try the Thin Blue Line game, which can be found at thinbluelinegame.com. It's the only card game in the world that allows you to shoot someone over a broken taillight and then escape accountability with the magical phrase, "I feared for my life." You know, typical cop stuff. Get it now at thinbluelinegame.com. Assault and battery is not included, but for a limited time, you can order your copies and use the coupon code CTF to have all shipping costs waived. So go get it. That's thinbluelinegame.com. I would definitely recommend it. It's very, very funny if you are not a fan of cops. If you do like kneeling down and deep-throating that boot, then you should probably avoid our show and the Thin Blue Line game. So if you are one of those people, we have already triggered you and you have left.
Hopefully,
yeah, because we don't want you. Actually, we do. We do want you. That's even. I mean,
yeah. Actually, we do want you to stick around, learn why we think the way we think, and why we don't support the state.
I can say that. That's just his username. Has observed that, even when it's not a commercial, it's still a commercial. Technically not. That they are a sponsor of our show.
Slightly different.
They pay us, the show, directly for the line read. The commercials during the breaks, they don't pay us. They pay the studio and the Liberty Radio Network and all of that. So it's drastically different. And of course, that is something that we are heavily interested in, right? This idea of holding police accountable and mocking the police, turning their entire institution into a laughingstock.
Maybe it's commercial, but it's also something that we can get behind.
Yeah, because that is how we deconstruct the state. We have to first deconstruct the mythology around the state. We have to get rid of these stolen valor laws, which I only learned about a few days ago, which evidently means that if you tell people you were in the military and you were not, that's a federal offense.
Even if you were in the military, if you tell people that you got like a Purple Heart and you didn't, that's the same thing.
Yeah. It's called stolen valor, and it's an idea that should be abolished not just legally, but culturally as well. We need to get rid of this idea that the troops are some sort of bastion of integrity and honor and goodness, and that they're out there defending the American dream and
they're
all
hired
of this
killers.
nonsense. They are hired killers, every single one of them. I don't care if they aren't literally the ones who pull the trigger. They are hired killers. That is all they are. They are hitmen. They are glorified hitmen, held up, propped up by this mythology that surrounds them and that surrounds the state in general. That's why it's got all the flag worship. That's why it's got all of the robes and the what is the word? The symbolism, what is the word I'm looking for? The reverence built into the system where you have to stand for the judge and, show proper obedience to the state.
But wait, Aria, if we don't have a military, who's going to go over to Afghanistan and kill people for us?
Nobody.
Before they come here and kill us.
Nobody is going to. Well, they're not going to come here and kill us if we weren't going there to kill them. That's how 9/11 happened in the first place. And the guy who organized 9/11, Osama bin Laden, without getting into the conspiracy theories and the high probability that the Bush administration not merely knew about 9/11 before it happened, but also actively facilitated it to happen. Let's not even get into that. Ostensibly, Osama bin Laden planned it, and he made it clear that his reason was because of American interventions in the Middle East. If we weren't doing those interventions, then that wouldn't have happened. If we weren't over there it's rather like sticking our fingers in an anthill and then becoming furious when we get stung and bitten by the ants. So we pour gasoline down it and throw a match into it. That's American foreign policy. in a nutshell.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
We keep going and we stick our finger in that ant hill, and then we are shocked that the ants had the audacity to sting us. Well, we can't allow that. We're America. So we pour gasoline down it, and we kill them all. Men, women, and children. It doesn't seem to matter. And when somebody comes along and says, hey, this is morally wrong, here's a video of these horrific things that you're doing, and they release it to the world, the people who do that get arrested and thrown into prison for 7 years, and the person who actually distributed it to the world ends up getting arrested many years later on BS charges that they can prove were made up, as it turns out, due to SMS records. And yet none of that really seems to matter because he, quote-unquote, skipped bail, and now Assange has been sentenced to like 50 weeks in jail.
Yeah, well.
During which which is probably just enough time for the U.S. military to, not the U.S. military, the U.S. government to institute, to begin extradition proceedings.
And introduce more charges.
Yeah, there's plenty of time for more charges, and we're going to see those, I'm sure.
There are more charges coming. That's why Chelsea Manning's in jail right now.
So coming to us from Scary Mommy, of course, we've been talking about school shootings, is the statement, I remember getting choked up and feeling anxious during fire drills as a child. Well,
I don't.
No, I don't either. I'm a bit weird, but I remember only hoping to see the school burn down.
Yeah, that's closer to the truth.
Yeah, because that means no school for a while, right? At least for a month.
Yeah.
And then they'll work out where you go to other classrooms and things like that. But yeah, I was always looking for the fire. Come on, let this one not be a drill. I didn't want any people to be injured, but I wanted the building itself to burn down.
And even if it didn't burn down, the fire drill was a nice excuse to have a little bit of time off of class.
Yeah, we stood outside talking. The tornado drills were much more jarring because they seem to always do those during the middle of storms and things like that. And being right there in Mississippi, it was a relative likeliness that there was some sort of tornado outside.
Yeah, it could happen.
Of course, there never was. Yes, I am saying that the military is inherently bad. It is a group of people who are hired to kill other people. They are welfare whores. They live off of money that was stolen by the American people so that they could be paid to go and murder people.
On behalf of a state.
And usually the state is doing all of this on behalf of corporate interests. It's a mess. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever that we need a military. We have plenty. We have two massive oceans on both sides that pretty much protect us from invasion. And it wasn't our military that deterred Japan from invading us during World War II. It was the fact that Americans have a lot of guns.
Behind every blade of grass.
I will give Bro Soldier that cops, firefighters, and the Air Force helped during 9/11. Well, the Air Force, not so much. They sort of allowed it to happen because they were given an active order by Dick Cheney to stand down. So I don't know how much the Air Force really helped, but cops and firefighters in New York, sure, absolutely. But there's no reason that, heroic people had to have those badges that they can abuse in order to go into those buildings and help people. And
plenty of other people help too. So
yeah,
where's their honor?
This is the call to freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. I'm, of course, your host, as always, Aria Mezzo, composer of the music you're listening to, which you can listen to in full at soundcloud.com/Aria Di Mezzo. That song is actually not uploaded yet. I need to do that. Actually, I will do that during the next break using, VNC and all of that good stuff. And, of course, I'm joined, as always, by
Michael Hampton from BitcoinHistory.com.
And DLive chat is off the rails. I would recommend people check that out. That's dlive.lrn.fm. Right now, it is related to the show, unlike the Discord server's conversation, which is about Mount Vernon or something. I don't know. So the contention is that I am a traitor.
Traitor?
Yes.
Do they even know what that word means?
I am absolutely a traitor to the American nation. I will gladly give them that point. I am an enemy of the state and a traitor to the American government. Sure, I have no problem with that whatsoever. I would encourage people to be enemies of the state and traitors to the American government. Poor Michael. He's like, how did I get roped into this?
Yeah, no. Why are you limiting this to the American government?
Because it's the one that I'm supposed to have allegiance to.
I'm sure we have people who aren't from America listening here. Be traitors to your government too.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Be traitors to your government regardless of where you're from. In fact, we do know we have people in like New Zealand and stuff like that listening to our show. So absolutely. And of course, there's these satellite feeds that broadcast to sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East. I mean, we got some pretty good coverage going. So, yes, be a traitor to your government because your government is immoral. Your government exists to institute force and violence against you, to rule over you and tell you what to do. The government doesn't take lightly to what I'm saying. I don't really care. We have been raided by the FBI in the past. We will be raided again.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's just a matter of time. I have not encouraged any violence against anyone. You cannot accuse me of terrorism by any means. Terrorism is attempting to use fear to force people to do what you want them to do. I'm not advocating that at all. I'm thoroughly against that. And that's why we just spent an hour talking about the horrors of these school shooting drills, because that
is terror. That is state-sponsored terrorism.
It is textbook terrorism. And
because they're abusing these children in order to push an agenda of, as we were about to get into, gun control.
And it's not just that. There are countless examples of terrorism by the American government. Everything the American government does, everything the state does, is backed by force and violence. It has a gun to your head right now. Metaphorically, sure. But just because it's metaphorical right now doesn't mean it can't become real. I challenge you, if you believe you're free, to do something the government has told you not to do. You will learn very quickly that you're not free. And
but why would anyone want to do something the government said not to do?
Because the government has no business telling people what they can and can't do. No one has any business telling another person what they can and can't do unless that person has voluntarily submitted to the authority of the commanding person. And I'm totally on board if people want to do that. That's fine. If you want to submit to the state, that is fine. I don't care. Actually, no, Alexis, my boobs are 100% real and self-grown. They are not fake. So thanks for trying. You lose.
They'd probably be bigger if they were fake, right?
They would be bigger. So anyway, it's not an example of American privilege. It's a call to philosophical arms. I think that the American government should not exist. I never submitted to the authority of the American government. And if I ever did, it was coercive
under duress.
And under duress. It was because there was a gun to my head. I have been arrested, certainly, and that was done with a gun to my head. Just because he hadn't pulled out the gun didn't mean that there wasn't a gun to my head. But yeah, so try not paying your taxes, right?
Your taxes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're your taxes. Absolutely.
Well, they say they are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole point, right? They become yours because you have to pay them. You don't get a choice. And if you do opt to not pay your extortion fees to the government to continue living for another day, they will send armed thugs to you in order to kidnap you. And if you don't submit to their kidnapping, they will shoot you. And that is the case with everything the government has told you to do and everything the government has told you not to do. Smoke weed out in the street, you're going to get arrested in a lot of cases.
That one's changing a little.
Even though there's nothing wrong with smoking weed, I don't smoke weed, but there's nothing immoral about it. The state has absolutely no business telling people they can't do it, I would say. So, and I think most people listening would agree that there's nothing inherently immoral about smoking marijuana. But yes, go out there, light up a joint on the street, and when the cops come to arrest you, refuse to submit to the aggression because they are aggressing against you. We have to understand what's actually happening here. You are going about your life in peace, not hurting anyone. You're just doing a thing that the government has told you not to do. That's all you're doing. You're not hurting anyone. You're just going about your life. And then this thug comes along and says, hey, you're not allowed to do that. I'm going to kidnap you. And I'm going to throw you in this jail until you pay me a fee to get out. There is nothing moral in that. That's one of the most immoral things I've ever heard.
Yeah, and try telling that thug no.
Yes.
See what happens.
Going forward, if you tell that thug, I'm not going to allow you to kidnap me while I'm going about my life in peace and not hurting anyone. I'm just living my life, and you came along and said you're going to kidnap me. You are not going to kidnap me. You will be shot and possibly killed. That's the state. That's what the state does. That's all it is. That's all it's ever been. And we've lost sight of that because of this mythology that surrounds the state that turns cops and the military and the American government into this wondrous, godlike thing that is omnipotent and omnibenevolent.
They're heroes. They save us.
They do.
They protect us.
Yeah, and it's all of this mythology that prevents people from seeing what is actually happening, which is just people going about their lives in peace, being aggressed against by the police who are acting on behalf of the state.
That's what it's all about. I can see chat blowing up, but I cannot see what they're saying from here.
They say you will not get arrested if you tell police you have marijuana. In a lot of states, you still will. Try that in Mississippi. You'll go straight to jail.
Yeah.
If you light up here on the streets of Keene, they will arrest you.
Yeah, try bringing some back across the border and see what happens.
Yep, they will arrest you. There is quite often a state trooper sitting there at the border of Brattleboro and New Hampshire.
Not just that one, like the U.S.-Canada border.
Oh, well, I was talking about that one because it's totally legal in Vermont, but it's only legal medically here, I think.
Yeah, just medical in New Hampshire.
Which is weird because are there dispensaries here? I haven't seen one. There's certainly not one in Keene.
2 or 3 in the whole state? I forget.
Wow, that's stupid. This show is in New Hampshire. So anyway, I want to move on from all of that. The government is a group of thugs. That's all they are. They are warlords who took control long ago and who realized that the best way to ensure their sovereignty over us was not to...
Not to point the guns at us all the time, but to make people think that they're a part of the system.
Yes. And that's certainly proven to be more effective because now we have Americans who believe things like, well, we are the government. Even though if you actually believe that to be true, ask yourself why you're not allowed to do many of the things that you want to do. You will find that you are not the government, that this other group of people is the government, and they do things that you don't want them to do and that you don't approve of all the time.
This is not the free country you thought it was.
It is not. And you will be shot and killed if you try to exercise your freedoms and they disapprove. And this is the Call to Freedom, but don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about butt plug being accused of rape. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. And you're invited to give us a call using our Discord lines. Our phone lines are still down. You can use our Discord call-in lines at discord.lrn.fm, however.
Yeah, sorry, I broke them.
And you can join in on the conversation. I mean, that's okay. You get better quality with Discord anyway, so that's how I prefer people to call in. Plus, it's easier to screen them and identify the trolls and all of that good stuff because... I mean, the trolling has died down a lot in recent weeks, but it's still there.
Well, you're pretty much virtually impossible to troll anyway.
I try. It is hard to troll someone who is naturally a troll, though. And I would remind these people that I troll people with my existence, right? I do things out in the real world to troll people, like joining the Republican Party here in Cheshire County and running for secretary of said party. So I very much like to troll people. It's a lot of fun. And anyway, so I mean, a lot of them are so bad at this. Like, I mean, we screen calls, right? Because we are a radio show and we have to deal with the FCC and all of that nonsense. So when they call, I put them on hold and then talk to them during commercials. And they're so stupid that during this, they start shouting, racial epithets and things like that, making it just abundantly clear that they are trolls, obviously. And to which I always respond, you know you're not on the air, right?
Do they ever actually hear it?
They do. They go, oh, no, I didn't know that. Well, now you do.
Yeah, pay attention.
There are occasions when trolls slip through, but even then, we have this nice little box behind me called a dump box, and it allows us to press a button, and voila, the previous 5 seconds of radio time have vanished by doing that.
It says 4.9 seconds.
Yeah, I'm going to call that 5 seconds, though.
Close enough.
Yeah, I mean, they'll still get out on the internet feeds and things like that. Well, on our video feeds, but that's just because we haven't bothered to implement the delay to that. As far as actually going out on the radio, which is where the audience is, it's not going to happen. Sorry to hear it. Sorry to inform you of that. Sorry.
Yeah, you want to troll us, you got to step up your game.
You do. Like the guy who called in saying that he was gay and bullied at school. That was a good troll. You got us. Of course, we were being trolled already at that point, so I was pretty sure that we were dealing with a story, right? Mm-hmm. Or a falsehood. But I legitimately hoped that it was just a troll because the story was super depressing. But that's the only real way to actually troll us. And even then, we turned that into an extensive conversation about bullying and people's responses to that. So who really got trolled in that particular scenario? I would say that Buttplug is getting trolled. Of course, this is Buttigieg or whatever. We call him Buttplug here on the show because it's funny and because we
don't know how his name is pronounced. So if you do, please get on Discord and give us a call.
Yeah. So Trump supporters allegedly recruited gay men to falsely accuse Buttplug of rape. And it occurred to me yesterday when we were talking about this, because I didn't know the dude was gay, that calling him Buttplug might, in fact, be offensive because he's gay. But I'm not willing to take a position where it's only acceptable to refer to someone who is straight as Buttplug. Oh, no. Being gay is not going to save him from that nickname here on Call to Freedom.
Yeah, we don't discriminate.
No, you are Buttplug, and I don't care if you're straight or gay or genderqueer or whatever, you're Buttplug. I mean, good God. Have you really never considered a change to your last name? No, I did not say, let me be clear, I did not say that Trump recruited gay men to accuse him of rape. Trump supporters did. Far-right trolls, Jacob Wall and Jack Berkman. This is how you troll people, by the way. So these far-right trolls allegedly recruited gay Republican men to falsely... There are gay Republicans?
There are gay Republicans. They even have a caucus.
To falsely accuse Democratic presidential candidate Buttplug of sexual assault. The scam, an effort to aid President Trump in the 2020 election, came to light Monday when a dubious post appeared on Medium, published under the name Hunter Kelly. The article contained a vague accusation of sexual assault against Buttplug and promised more information in the coming days. Only the real Kelly said that the post is made up and that he didn't write it. Kelly told Vice News that Wall, a far-right conspiracy theorist, first contacted him through Signal, an encrypted messaging service, and it will destroy your battery life for some reason. Or it did mine. My battery life improved by 10 times when I uninstalled Signal, in fact, and instead just used Telegram. which is superior anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably your phone. I have them both, and I never had battery issues with Signal. So,
well, I did on my S7. I have battery issues on my S5 anyway for unrelated reasons. Good God, my S7. So I ordered a replacement screen, right, because the screen is broken. And I took my phone completely apart because I'm a tech person. I know what I'm doing. When I order a part, I know what I'm ordering. Except I apparently don't in regard to phones. Because I ordered a replacement screen, right? Obviously, because I need a replacement screen. So I took my phone apart meticulously, being careful. I've never taken apart a phone before, not to that degree anyway. I actually stopped doing phone and tablet work when I owned an IT firm in Mississippi because it was just so tedious it wasn't cost effective. But I've replaced just about everything in a laptop. And it's the same principle here, only it's a smaller space. So I took the S7 apart in order to replace the screen, got it completely pulled apart, opened up the box. There was no screen in there. There is a front glass in there. And that is all that is in there. This was actually, I opened the box beforehand, but I didn't look through it. This was so jarring to me that I continued to look around for an LCD that I must have taken out of the box and already set aside somewhere. Because I was like, there is no way I ordered a front glass. There's just no way. But evidently, I did.
Oops.
Yeah. So my S7 is completely pulled apart. I'm not happy about it. And now I have to order a separate part. Which, sure, technically I did need a front glass, but it was very low on the priority list. Mm-hmm. I would never have just replaced the front glass as long as I lived, because it was just, who cares?
Yeah.
It's got some cracks on it. It still works. I only want to replace the LCD because it's broken and does not work. There's no display whatsoever. So that sucked. I don't really care what people care about. I'm going to talk about whatever I want to talk about because this is my show. But thanks for trying.
What were they going off about?
That no one cares about the phone. But we were talking about battery life and Signal, and that's how it all came into play.
We got distracted. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do here on Call to Freedom.
We get distracted.
Yeah, we do. And we talk about how you should revolt against the state philosophically, not with arms. But we're going to talk more about butt plug and the fabricated rape allegations, so don't go anywhere. This is the Call to Freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, and I'd like to invite you to check out our social media. You can find our Facebook by using @the Call to Freedom. You can find us on Twitter by using @CTF_LRN, and you can find us on Liberdon by using @Call to Freedom there as well. But of course, the best way to talk with us is to contact us on Discord by using discord.lrn.fm. Or through Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/call-to-freedom. I would recommend Discord, however, above all the other stuff, because I've got Discord installed on every single device that I use because they're all related to gaming in some way or another. You can quite a lot see me playing Smite as well, because I do play a lot of Smite. Haven't streamed it in a while. I've been kind of busy this week. But anyway, we've been talking about butt plug. That's Buttigieg, for those who are new to the show and don't know who we're talking about when we call him that. Apparently, some Trump supporters attempted to hire some, or attempted to pretend to be some gay Republicans accusing butt plug of rape.
Now, there are actually gay Republicans. They exist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sure. There are stupid people in all political parties. So Wall evidently put together a scheme to smear butt plug by fabricating rape allegations against him, which isn't terribly surprising. Rape has proven to be a really effective political tool. Accusations of rape have proven to be a pretty effective tool.
Yeah, that's something that, you're supposed to believe the accuser. The accused just doesn't get their day in court of public opinion. They just get fried.
Yeah.
Whether they did it or not.
So Kelly's claims have been corroborated by the Daily Beast, which reported Monday that Wall and Berkman had approached a separate source to accuse Buttplug of assault. That source provided, well, if he's a butt plug, he isn't the one getting raped. He would be the one doing the raping, I think. I'm not sure how possible it is to rape someone in the other direction. I don't give it a lot of thought.
This is not my area of expertise.
But the source provided the Daily Beast with an audio recording of Wall referring to Buttplug as a terminal threat to Trump in the 2020 election. The Daily Beast also reported that Wall's father had tweeted out the false story. So Kelly told Vice News that Wall and Berkman arranged to fly him from his home in Grand Rapids, Michigan to Baltimore to discuss a role in a task force set up by the Trump administration to slightly push back the progress of Buttplug's campaign. Wall pulled up his MacBook and showed me an article that was just a draft, though was posted on April the 28th to Medium, where Wall pretended to be me and spewed a bunch of hateful accusations at Buttplug. I told him I was not sure how I felt. I don't know why you weren't sure. I would be pretty sure if somebody was going to post an article ostensibly from me claiming that I had been raped by them. I would be appalled. I would be completely sure.
I would denounce you from every place I could.
Yeah, and if you went ahead and posted that article, I would do everything I could to separate myself from it and make it clear that you did this, not me. So Kelly told Vice News that Wall wanted him to falsely accuse Buttplug of assaulting him at the Mayflower Hotel in D.C. Kelly also said that Wall and Berkman posted the Medium article without his permission and created a fake Twitter account under his name to tweet about the accusation. Next thing I know, Jack Berkman is telling me how I am a star and people are eating me up, Kelly said. I kept telling Jacob I was having regretful thoughts and told him I didn't want to be involved. Wow, why wasn't that clear from the outset is my concern.
If it wasn't clear from the outset, he might have actually been considering going along with it.
Well, I mean, it seems that he was considering going along with it and that he ultimately backed out. He was having regretful thoughts and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. So he kept saying that he was having regretful thoughts and was told that backing out was not an option because turning back on what had been published would look bad. Kelly added that he had never even been to the Mayflower Hotel, nor did he ever wake up with Buttplug forcefully pulling down his pants like he was almost coerced into saying. You mean almost persuaded into saying, because you weren't coerced, I don't think.
Where's the coercion? I hadn't heard anything in this story yet about actual coercion.
Yeah, there was some persuasion, evidently.
I mean, were they offered money for this? Or what exactly?
Well, even that wouldn't qualify as coercion. I mean, he was just persuaded to go along with it. And he did. And then he regretted it. And apparently, part of the accusation was that he woke up with Peter Buttplug forcefully pulling down his pants. Which, wow. Okay, then. Not if you clean them. I am, from the bottom of my heart, truly sorry for everyone involved in the very serious Me Too movement, he said. I will continue to use my voice and honesty to make a difference. Jack Berkman may have promised me a lavish lifestyle, but at a price that would cost me two of the most important things to me, honesty and integrity. Interesting.
Okay, so he was offered money.
He was offered money, evidently, or something. Money certainly changes people, but anyone who was willing, even temporarily, to put aside their honesty and integrity in order to earn a quote-unquote lavish lifestyle is probably lacking in a bit of honesty and integrity in the first place. So he should probably do some soul searching before he really, starts throwing stones at people. He clearly agreed to do it initially and then backed out.
Good idea.
Yeah, not a good idea. But, he agreed to it in theory before anything was actually posted, so I will give him that.
Well, I meant the soul searching was a good idea.
Oh, yeah. Well, I thought you were being sarcastic when you said good idea. So Trump, in regard to medical care, he is announcing that the conscience objection rule is being finalized. I'm not sure exactly what this entails, but it's about religious conscience protections. So if you don't want to get your kids treated because, Jesus is going to heal them or whatever, you're apparently protected now by the federal government.
Oh, lovely.
Which is, of course, a position that I don't agree with.
Now, who's going to protect us from them?
Well, we don't have to be protected from them. I'm not raised by them. They're not my parents. I don't care what they do. It's not my concern. It's not my kid. If they want to allow a child to die because they think God is going to cure them or whatever, it's tragic, but it's ultimately not my call to make. I don't think we need to get the state involved to make a different decision for them. I will respect their right to disagree with me about worldviews. And even then, if God doesn't save their child, they would have the classic fallback. Well, I guess it was God's plan for the child to die. Again, I would not disagree with that. I will respect someone's right to believe it. I will not respect them for believing it, but I will respect their right to. But respecting a person's religious beliefs doesn't mean you have to actually respect that person. Or that you have to care at all about their religious beliefs. Speaking of religious beliefs, as I was walking down the street in Keene today on Main Street, I learned that it's National Prayer Day because someone came up to me and offered me a cookie and asked me if I wanted to join them in prayer. I, of course, said no, that I do my wishful thinking in the safety of my home, not out on the street.
It's also the National Day of Remembering the Holocaust.
Interesting. Well, it's National Prayer Day, evidently. And I would like to change that to National Wishful Thinking Day, because that's what prayer is. It's this idea that we can somehow conjure up our thoughts and send them out into the universe, and that the universe will somehow change things according to our whims and our requests, and it's absolute nonsense. If you want something to change, I would recommend getting off of your knees, getting out there in the real world, and working on that change. Not praying for it, because that's not going to be effective. The cookie would have been more effective than all the praying done in the city of Keene today. And throughout the United States today, because prayer is nothing more than thinking about a given topic. Meditation is infinitely more useful than prayer. Well, this is the Call to Freedom. We're going to get more into this, so don't go anywhere. Actually, we're going to move on to Julian Assange, who is now fighting extradition. This is the Call to Freedom. Oh, wow. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. And before we start talking about Julian Assange and his arrest in the United Kingdom and how he's fighting extradition to the United States, I want to remind you that our podcasts have moved. They are no longer being uploaded to Spreaker. You can instead find them on Podbean at calltofreedomlive.podbean.com. For those of you who do not like listening to the commercials, the podcast does not have them. So I would recommend checking that out instead. Again, that's calltofreedomlive.podbean.com. You can also find it on Google Play Music, Spotify, and iTunes, all of which happens automatically without any further doing on my part, and that's the best part of it.
So go get it.
Yep. So again, go check that out. We actually exploded today for some reason. Well, not exploded. Double the traffic that we had. Or that we've had. It was doubled the peak traffic, actually. So it was pretty good. I don't know what happened. I assume it got shared somewhere. So that's awesome. Again, go check that out. It's called freedomlive.podbean.com. So WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was arrested in the United Kingdom, in case you somehow missed the news, for skipping bail because he couldn't step foot outside of the Ecuadorian embassy without being arrested.
Arrested for skipping bail.
Oh, but he could have, hold on, but he could have gone to court, right?
Yeah, so wait, what happened, a lot of people are confused about this. What happened way back in 2012 is that Sweden came along with these charges of rape.
Oh, he was going to be arrested for that.
Right. He was going to be extradited for that. So he was out on bail awaiting his extradition hearing to Sweden. before that hearing, he went into the Ecuadorian embassy and requested asylum, so he wouldn't get extradited to Sweden. Now,
okay.
Sweden eventually dropped the charges, but the UK still said, "Okay,
also brought
you
them
didn't
back.
show up in court for your hearing, so you're a bail jumper."
Well, technically,
yeah.
But the charge and the bail should never have been leveled against him in the first place, and
That doesn't matter. They're the state.
It does matter to a degree because public opinion, all governments require it, all states require it. They do require the passive consent of the majority of the people, simply because there's more of us than there are of them. So I would argue that in this particular case, it probably would have helped for people to be aware that he evidently had SMS records to prove his innocence, which he should not have to do in the first place, but which he evidently is capable of doing. I think that probably would have gone a long way. I don't know why he's only just now releasing them. So
I don't know.
So he took a charge that he evidently could have fought and could have proven his innocence in to the public, not to the state. Screw the states. They're not relevant in this particular scenario. And he multiplied that by jumping bail and technically fleeing the country to Ecuador. And they finally got sick of him because evidently he didn't take very good care of himself.
Or apparently have very much respect for where he was staying.
Yeah. So they got sick of him and they allowed the United Kingdom to arrest him. And now he's facing extradition to the United States, who, of course, is going to stack all the charges against him that they want in order to put him in prison for life. Now, Ross Ulbricht is serving 2 life sentences for operating a website that was a gift to humanity. I can only imagine what they're going to do to Julian Assange for operating a different website that was a different gift to humanity.
He'll be Ross Ulbricht's cellmate.
Most likely. So it's likely to be a long and high-profile politicized legal battle. He's fighting extradition to the United States and told a packed British courtroom that he would not willingly surrender to U.S. authorities. I would highly recommend you not surrendering to U.S. authorities. Assange, who is now 47, has been under investigation in the United States for his role in the release of classified military and diplomatic documents in 2010. And an indictment unsealed in April charged him with conspiring with U.S. intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning to hack into a Defense Department computer. Asked at the beginning of Thursday's hearing at Westminster Magistrates Court whether he wanted to consent to being extradited to the United States, Assange said that he did not. Well, shocking. No, I don't want to go to this government that I have made extremely unhappy with me and who is going to find any excuse that they can think of to throw me in prison for the rest of my life.
Right.
I do not want to surrender for extradition for doing journalism that has protected many people and won many awards, said Assange. And they then describe his outfit.
Why do they describe his... Was he wearing something unusual?
Not really. A black jacket and jeans.
Okay.
They needed content, I guess. Representing the U.S. government in court, British lawyer Ben Brandon said that Assange stands accused of abetting the largest compromise of classified information in United States history. Assange would face a maximum of 5 years in prison if convicted of that charge. They will add more to it.
Yeah, like I said, there are more charges coming because they had Chelsea Manning in front of a grand jury trying to get her to testify against Assange, and she refused, which is why she's in a jail cell now. And this is after this indictment against Assange came out. So they are actively pursuing other charges.
No, it was before. She was put back into prison.
Yeah, it was before.
Yeah.
It was before, but this indictment has been going. The indictment they put out this year has been under investigation before then.
Yeah.
It's not related to this current grand jury thing that Chelsea Manning was arrested for.
No. Well, I mean, it's related, sure.
Well, it's
but
not the same indictment, is what I'm saying.
Well, it's going to be different charges, certainly. But the hearing lasted about 15 minutes before it was adjourned until May the 30th. And a more substantive hearing was set for June the 12th. Signaling that this was the start of a lengthy legal process, District Judge Michael Snow said that a full extradition hearing is still many months away. It was Assange's second court appearance in as many days. On Wednesday, he was sentenced to 50 weeks in prison for jumping bail in 2012. So if he can fight extradition for longer than 50 weeks, shouldn't he be released?
Well, they might give him bail again.
Well, I mean, he
might skip it.
But it's not a matter of bail at this point. He was only sentenced to 50 weeks.
Right.
So once those 50 weeks have elapsed, they have to set him free because he has served his sentence.
Yeah, but he's still got the extradition hanging over him.
Yeah, but they can't
might detain him for that.
They can't. I don't think they are legally allowed to.
Yeah. But they might have to give him bail again.
I don't think they're allowed to hold him past his 50-week sentence term until they are actually in court on the matter. But at the time, he was seeking extradition to Sweden, where he was wanted for questioning over sexual assault allegations. I don't think he was seeking extradition to Sweden.
No, the government was.
The judge in the case rebuked Assange for avoiding justice and insulting the British judiciary by seeking refuge in the Embassy of Ecuador in London. Swedish prosecutors are considering whether to reopen their investigation into a rape claim against Assange. I thought they had reopened it. Apparently, they are still just considering it. If both Sweden and the United States attempt to extradite Assange, then it would be up to British officials to decide which request, if any, to honor first. Well, it's not hard to figure out which one they would allow. Legal experts say the extradition process could take years as it weaves through various courts. So that's my general takeaway from this, is that all he has to do is serve his 50-week sentence while continuing to fight extradition.
No, I don't think they'll let him out of jail this time.
They don't have charges against him.
They have the extradition.
Yeah.
They can hold someone for extradition.
They can hold someone on charges leveled against a different government. Oh, that's screwed up. So he should certainly fight it anyway. And I mean, if that's the case, it's true. He's screwed.
I mean, that's why he had to post bail in the first place back in 2012.
Well, he had to post bail because he had been arrested, and that's part of the arrest process.
Right.
Regardless of who is charging you. I mean, that was why he was arrested, certainly, but that money wasn't paid to Sweden or the state leveling charges against him or anything like that. It was paid to the United Kingdom government.
Right. But the point is, he was arrested.
He was arrested, yeah. But that was because there was, well, okay, sure. After he's served these 50 weeks, they can then re-arrest him. Actually, yeah, that sucks. Good luck, Assange. I don't think this is going to play out very well for him.
Yeah, it's unlikely.
Yeah, hopefully, justice will win out. But I don't.
Not with the U.S. involved.
No, and I don't expect the British government to resist this effort by the U.S. government to destroy journalism. This is the call to freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. And as always, I'm your host, Aria DeMezzo of Aria Uncensored, which you can listen to live on Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every pen in the studio stops working randomly. Of course, we got banned, or suspended, rather, from Twitch for Aria Uncensored. Still something I'm proud of. Tranny boobies evidently violate their nudity policies. So future episodes, unfortunately, will not be topless.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, they will technically be topless. Sure. The next episode, I am going to use electrical tape to cover my nipples, which technically would not qualify as nudity. And, of course, I'm joined, as always, by
Michael Hampton from CryptoTip.org, and I'm just along for the ride.
And coming to us from the New York Times, Facebook has barred Alex Jones, the conspiracy theorist. I mean, if you don't know who Alex Jones is, you're probably living under a rock. And other right-wing personalities from its service in an escalation of its enforcement of its content policies. Of course, I'm not a fan of this because Facebook is so closely tied to the state. It is increasingly becoming sort of mandatory for life. I mean, people just expect you to be on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, you're weird.
That may be a good argument for getting off Facebook.
Yeah, but then you're the weird one, right?
Right. Well, exactly.
So the other people banned include Louis Farrakhan, the outspoken black nationalist minister who has frequently been criticized for his anti-Semitic remarks. Interesting. I'm very surprised to find that they banned a black nationalist, but good on them for that. Milo, the lunatic provocateur and far-right media personality. I think his last name is like Yiannopoulos or something like that.
Yanni.
Yeah, no, I don't really care.
Yanni Laurel.
Yeah, I don't care. And other less prominent but still controversial figures like Laura Loomer, Paul Joseph Watson, and Paul Nillen. So a fair number of people have now been banned from Facebook. The company said they were barred from using Facebook and Instagram under Facebook's policies against dangerous individuals and organizations.
What is this policy against dangerous individuals and organizations? We could be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, especially with me getting on here saying, I am an enemy of the state and other things like that. We're definitely going to be considered dangerous individuals and a dangerous organization.
Yeah. So what does this mean exactly?
Well, it means that anyone they deem to be a threat to the status quo is going to get banned from Facebook ultimately.
All right. See ya.
Yeah, I mean, but this certainly will include us at some point. It doesn't now because we're just not on their radar. But ideally, we will be at some point because it's kind of hard to ignore, the red-headed libertarian tranny who says things like, I'm an enemy of the state. So they've always banned individuals and organizations that promote or engage in violence and hate, regardless of ideology, a Facebook spokeswoman said in a statement. The process for evaluating potential violators is extensive, and it is what led us to our decision to remove these accounts today. Well, we don't promote or engage in violence and hate, certainly. We do not promote violence against the state. We do hate the state because the state is an aggressor, and I am not a fan of aggression. So Facebook has long had difficulty applying its rules consistently across the network of nearly 3 billion people who regularly use Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp.
Yeah, that's nearly half the world population.
It is. They've been criticized for allowing content from Mr. Jones and other far-right fringe figures to exist on the site. And in recent months, Facebook has decided to take down some of the more controversial accounts on the service. So, yeah, it's basically just not having, millions of subscribers or followers or whatever that keeps us active on Facebook. And the second we get too much attention, they will drop the ban hammer on us as well. And hey, I'm okay with that. I will add it in my not so funny things that I have done and awesome results that came about.
Yeah, if we get banned from Facebook, so what? We'll see you later. We'll go somewhere else.
Yep. I mean, we are already moving away from Facebook with the show. There's no replacements currently because I don't log into the Twitter or the Mastodon often enough. The Facebook one is right there. I don't even use it very often, though. It's certainly something that I need to do more of, but I'm perpetually pulled in many, many directions at any given moment. I'm looking into getting Chris to actually host the show on Tuesdays afternoons because I know he's capable. He hosts the show every Saturday. So hopefully he will agree to that. And I can just start taking Tuesdays off, which would be great.
Yeah.
And if that fails, maybe I can get Will Coley to call in to host the shows on Tuesdays like he used to do out of East Tennessee. So, I mean, there's options I'm looking into. Of course, none of this will affect Aria Uncensored, which occurs at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on DLive, Twitch, and YouTube. That's youtube.com/Aria DiMezzo, by the way. Because it happens so late in the evening after Thunderbuns has already gone to sleep anyway because he's got a kid that he has to take to school the next morning and all that kind of nonsense. So I can still do Aria Uncensored without getting in the way of anything, which is awesome because I really enjoy doing Aria Uncensored. It's the one radio program I do that doesn't actually count as work because I just sit there topless drinking wine and having increasingly ridiculous conversations.
Wait, why aren't we drinking during this show?
Because I have to work afterward.
Oh, right.
If you want to drink, have at it. I don't care. I really don't. I don't drink during work, so I don't drink during Call to Freedom or Free Talk Live, even on those days when I'm off. I certainly could, but I don't because I do consider this to be work, and I don't drink at work. I also have a lot of alcoholics in my family, so I'm very careful with alcohol. Like, I don't keep it at home primarily for that reason, just because I don't want it to be that accessible. I regretted it Tuesday when I lit the bonfire out back. I was like, man, I really need wine to sit out here with.
The liquor store is right down the street.
From here?
No, from the house.
I did not know that. I mean, yeah, maybe, but then I start keeping liquor at home. And again, I'm not a fan of that. I just don't want it to be that accessible, I know that I have the discipline to not become an alcoholic, but one of the ways that discipline manifests is by not keeping it on hand.
Gotcha.
So I just keep it here at the studio instead, or it's not mine here at the studio.
Ian shares. Ian likes to share and drink.
Well, so do I. I bought 2 boxes so far here for the studio, so to speak, and I certainly haven't drinking that much, but drinking, listen to me. It's like I've already been drinking. I certainly have not drank that much, but I don't care because it's better here than it is at home, right?
Yeah, here you're having fun, being social, partying a little. Yeah. Drinking at home is just...
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to be out there drinking at a campfire by myself. That certainly would have been depressing. I did think about taking some MDMA because, I mean, that it goes well with the campfire, whether alone or with other people. But once what's his name? Thunderbuns, that's what I call him. I keep coming very close to accidentally slipping with his actual name. But once Thunderbuns left, the whole thing just became increasingly boring. And, of course, we are kind of lunatics, so we piled way, way, way too much wood on it. And it continued burning until like 11 o'clock. And I was so sick of it by that point that I just got a water hose and poured it out, and smoke went everywhere. As you know, I expected to happen, obviously, because that always happens. But I was sure that at that point, the fire department was going to get called. But, of course, they knew because this is Keene and you have to have a permit to have a fire. So I got a permit doing that stupid crap, bending my knees to the state and allowing them to have the authority to tell me whether or not I can or can't light a fire on my property.
Yeah. Well, otherwise they'd shoot you.
Yeah, they would shoot me otherwise. And this is the call to freedom. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. And, of course, you are invited to give us a call. Unfortunately, the phone lines are still down, so you will have to use... You will have to use...
the Discord call-in lines at discord.lrn.fm.
Yeah, thank you. Interesting. Tool, who you were just listening to, has launched profiles on Spotify and Apple Music.
That is new.
It is new. That would explain why they started flagging our content as well, as I predicted they were actually going to do, pending the release of this new album. They can say all of the, once we release a song, it's no longer ours. It's the listener stuff that they want to.
Yeah, but then they start flagging everybody's stuff. That isn't living up to what you're saying.
No, and they did it for years, decades even. They released songs and They even asked the audience's permission at Ozfest one year to redo Push It. And it was not as good as the original. I don't know why people rave about it. It's really just the original slightly rearranged. And only for the beginning part where Adam Jones, instead of playing the standard riffs, he plays the interlude. Otherwise, it's identical, and with significantly worse singing as well, I would point out. But it very quickly falls into the actual original. Only the beginning of the song is different. And even that only barely. So that's interesting. I will need to pull up Spotify during the next break because it's a noticeable absence. I listen to a lot of Tool. Not to the extent that a lot of these lunatics do. I don't think that Tool puts me in touch with a higher plane of existence or whatever these idiots out there believe. I think that Tool just writes interesting music, and being a musician, I find that fascinating. It's a bit predictable. Once you learn 5 or 6 Tool songs, which, by the way, I can play on guitar every single Tool song, and I have a GNX3 effects processor, so I can actually mimic the effects spot on, and you can find me doing that on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Aria where I play The Grudge and Eulogy and a couple of others, all because, YouTube did not flag that content. I think they probably will now. I have not checked. So I'm going to have to look them up on Spotify because it's a noticeable absence from my playlists. Suddenly, there should be a Tool song, something, that I like, that I really like, that I'm really a fan of. Of course, they're a perfect circle. Billy Howardell is a much better composer than anyone in Tool. And yes, I will proudly say that. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people but Tool is God tier, and A Perfect Circle is just really good. No, sorry to disappoint you. Billy Howardell writes all of the music for A Perfect Circle, 100%. Everything except the percussion, actually. And when you have one person writing songs like Orestes and The Noose and Gravity and things like that, that's when you're listening to something special from a really gifted and talented musician who is able to accurately convey their emotional status through music. So awesome stuff to hear. If they've actually uploaded anything to it, I will be sure to check that out. Of course, we're on Spotify as well.
I just did a quick search and I could not find their artist page, so I don't know if it's there yet or not. Interesting.
Well, according to this article, it is. I've not clicked it because, no, we are not a music show.
Actually, we're not.
We're not. I am a musician. I'm a really freaking good musician. To toot my own horn.
What we are is easily distracted.
Yeah, well, when I see something like that and I'm going through the news feed trying to find something to talk about, it completely derailed every thought that was in my head. To the Max for Freedom is saying that I don't have to follow the laws because I don't care about going to prison because of all the gay sex.
We talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Indeed. That's why I read his comment. There was this, was it in Ohio?
North Dakota, South Dakota?
It was in some Mormon state.
Yeah.
Where this guy was sentenced to death because the jury thought that he might enjoy his time in prison because he's gay.
Which is ridiculous.
It's also been pointed out that it, meaning me, may go to a female prison. Not a female federal prison, actually. We continue to house trans women in male prisons if they are federally owned. Some states and state prisons will properly sort trans people into their prison of, I don't want to say of their choosing, but of their gender. So let's go with that.
Identity.
Yeah. A lot of people would make the contention, well, that's not right, because then you could just have some guy get arrested and say he identifies as a female, and then you have to put them in the female prison. That shows a grievous misunderstanding of what being trans is. It is not a statement that you identify as a woman. It's a lifestyle. The proof is here that I identify as a woman, right?
Yeah, you've got to do a lot more than just say, "Oh, I'm going to be trans today." You've got to actually go out and buy makeup and learn how to put it on, and
it's pretty tedious.
Do your hair up every day, and
well, I don't do that.
Grow boobs.
But you and ideally you would start taking spironolactone and estrogen. I think that should probably be if there is going to be a legal standard for what is and isn't transgender, for who is and isn't transgender, and I don't think there should be such a legal standard by any means. But if there is going to be one, then I think a good cutoff would be whether the person is on
hormone replacement therapy.
Yes, thank you. So if the person is on spironolactone and estradiol, then I don't think anyone else should be able to say, no, you're a man, or no, you're a female if they're taking testosterone. That's not your call to make. It's their call to make. And look, again, I just said that I identify as a woman. In fact, I've never done so. I just identify as me. I do primarily strive to be more feminine. That's a long, difficult uphill battle. It's always going to be for any trans person, unless they begin, taking estradiol and things like that when they're 13 years old, which triggers a lot of people, but it is what it is. Anything after 18 is going to be extremely difficult, and as you get older, it just becomes more and more difficult because your body is less likely to react as one would like. Because by then you've already grown wide shoulders, you've already grown muscles and things like that, and eventually, yes, I do expect most of that to go away, but we're talking decades at that point. I mean, we're talking a decade for someone who's 12 years old as well. They're not fully finished developing at that point. It takes a very long time, but it's what am I looking for here? It's more effective, more prominent, right? Like my large shoulders, which a certain listener who is currently butthurt with me or something, I don't know, likes pointing out. They're probably permanent. Maybe when I'm 40 years old or something like that, they will be much smaller. But I mean, they're there and they're not going anywhere. So this is the Call to Freedom. We're going to move on to other things, so don't go anywhere. I just have to find those other things and not get distracted by random shiny articles. But this is the Call to Freedom, and I promise I do not have ADD. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom, broadcast as always from the Liberty Radio studio here in Keene, New Hampshire. And speaking of, sex change hormones and all of that stuff, a global athletics governing body has ruled against Caster Semenya's appeal to compete without lowering her naturally high testosterone levels, deciding that such discrimination is necessary. So let me paint the picture accurately. This is a cis woman, just a normal chick. No one would be like, you're not really a woman or anything like that. It's just a chick who is an athlete and who has naturally high testosterone levels. Okay. Apparently, the athletic body that oversees the sports that she participates in has decided that they are too high, and that she must take testosterone blockers because it's giving her an unfair advantage.
Has there been a genetic test on this? This is Mark from Free Talk Live coming in here. I just have a question. Do you know if there's been a genetic test on this woman and to check and see whether or not she's sort of chromosomally normal?
Yeah, is she actually a woman? Is she intersex, possibly?
I don't know.
Okay.
They say she's a cis woman. I did read a little of this story, but I don't know. She might not be.
Cis might not be, cis can be defined a variety of ways,
sure.
Right? There are chromosomal abnormalities out there that's how we evolved.
Right.
Right. And,
I mean, yeah, there's XXY, XYY, and
right. She
all
could
of
be
this stuff
any
out
one
there.
of these things, resulting in an advantage. And I'm not entirely sure how I would handle that in sports, but I have proposed that there be a class that I call the double X class. Which is not the nicest name in the world, but for only
sounds
people
kinky
who qualify as
that's triple X
women, XX women, and then everything else would just be open.
Interesting. So we're allowing women to compete just against other women.
Right.
But not against anyone else.
Correct. So if she has the advantage, so if she has 2 X chromosomes and no Y chromosomes, then she would qualify for this particular league, and then everything else is just sort of open for competition.
Okay.
So it's for me, it's just a chromosomal issue because, best I can tell, the gals can't compete against, well, anybody else.
Right. And I can't disagree with that. The women's high jump record is lower than the men's high jump record. The women's, 100-meter dash record is lower than the men's, the long jump record. Any sport that seems to require physical activity has an obvious and existent disparity between the best female in the world and the best male in the world.
Yep. And
these facts aren't going to change because of our feelings.
Probably not. I will tell you that your average guy cannot whoop your average female jiu-jitsu black belt.
Well, certainly not.
Yeah.
But your average male jiu-jitsu black belt would whoop your average female black belt jiu-jitsu person.
I would say that that's true. I wouldn't put them up against Gabby Garcia. The lady's a monster.
Yeah, sure. There's certainly anomalies and things like that. And these are, of course, averages.
6'2", 225.
Holy crap.
I know. She puts you in a leg lock. I mean, death by snoo-snoo.
Yeah,
Serious
no
business.
kidding.
She's not an unattractive woman. She's just she's beefy, man. Serious business. And then when she's not ripped, because sometimes she does the bodybuilding thing, but sometimes she's just kind of bulking up. And oh, my God.
This was the issue I had with the trans male wrestler or trans female wrestler, whatever it was, in Texas as well. It was trans female because testosterone is almost by definition a performance-enhancing drug.
Sure is.
Yeah.
It's only mildly less performance-enhancing than like steroids.
HGH.
Isn't testosterone one of the steroids that people take?
Well, it's a hormone.
As a performance-enhancing drug?
Well, it's a hormone. I don't think it's a steroid.
But HGH is a hormone also, and they do take that. So
okay,
interesting. They may take hormones too. I don't, steroids I think is sort of catch-all for performance-enhancing drugs.
Right. Well, I know that medically there's a difference between a steroid and a hormone.
I'm sure that's true.
So when I say steroids, I probably mean the catch-all that you're referring to.
Testosterone is the primary male sex hormone and an anabolic steroid.
Okay, so it is a steroid as well.
All right.
Okay, well there we go. But it's a naturally high steroid
it's naturally
level.
Occurring.
What do you do about that?
But if a guy's walking around with extra high steroids or extra high testosterone, just happens to have extra high testosterone,
right?
Nobody's going to have a problem with that.
They don't throw him out of sports.
No, but what if he has an unnaturally high, a naturally high estrogen level?
Probably not going to throw him out.
I
don't think
they don't let him into the women's division.
They're only testing for a few things.
Well, I don't think they're arguing that she should be forced into the male's division because of her testosterone level. Just that she has to take spironolactone or some other testosterone blocker because it gives her an unfair advantage. But I mean, isn't that
why is it unfair?
And that's exactly what I was about to say. That isn't that the entire point of sports in the first place is to determine, who's naturally more capable than someone else?
Right. If she was, 6'6" or a whole variety of other natural things, then that would be completely acceptable. I don't know. The genetic aspect concerns me, but anything else doesn't.
Right.
That's just the way it is.
Well, she may be XX. Both men and women have both testosterone and estrogen in different quantities.
That's true.
And it could just be the case that for whatever reason she has unnaturally high testosterone levels while being XX.
Yep.
I don't think that's probably very likely, but I certainly would agree that, her body's chemistry, her testosterone levels have given her an advantage in physical competitions. I think that's the point of having these physical competitions.
I'm sure FloJo, what is the competition, by the way? What is she doing?
It doesn't say. She's a sprinter.
She's a sprinter.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure FloJo had some kind of genetic advantage. Florence Johnson, if you're not familiar.
Yeah, I didn't know who FloJo was.
Yeah. Do you remember, the song Baby Got Back?
Yeah.
I treat my women like FloJo. is what he says. So he's referring to Florence Johnson, which I presume he's trying to say that I treat my women as though they are high-performing athletes.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I presume it's well, right? Like,
yeah, it doesn't sound like an insult.
No, I mean, she is immortalized in one of the greatest songs written in the late 20th century, right?
So apparently, they're saying that on the basis of evidence submitted by the parties, such discrimination is a necessary, reasonable, and proportionate means of achieving the IAAF's aim of preserving the integrity of female athletics in the restricted events.
So is this college then? IAAF sounds college-y.
Well, she's 28, so I hope not.
Okay.
No, it's the International Association of Athletics Federation.
Okay. So she's an Olympic athlete, basically.
Yeah. And this is
can't
their
make money doing anything. You're not a sprinter and you're not Olympic. So, I mean.
But she seems to be pretty good at it. Good enough that they were like, no, we need to run a hormonal test on this chick and make sure she's actually a girl.
They didn't run him on Usain Bolt.
That's true, they didn't, but I think
maybe they probably run him for performance enhancing drugs, but
that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Are we going to screen every athlete's testosterone levels when they do well? Are we going to say that Barry Bonds' home run record doesn't count because he has high testosterone? I mean, obviously, I think there's some allegations that he was on other steroids as well, but yeah. I mean, they all are.
Well, I think another good question is consider the athletes that competed 100 years ago versus the ones that are today. So there's wars that were going on. These guys are drafted, coming back. And
like Babe Ruth was fat.
They were gone, right? They were gone for 4 years and then came back and set records. There's athletes that probably died from, I don't know, typhoid or something that now is completely preventable. Do we need to prevent childhood vaccines for people who grew up as athletes? I mean, if you're alive, you can compete. If you're not, you can't. So if you want to make this fair to something that occurred, I mean, baseball's been there's records going back nearly 150 years on baseball.
Right.
So I'm sure that there's records for about 150 years. Nobody's ever going to be the athlete that Jim Thorpe was. I mean, the man's an absolute freak. So, whatever. And he did set his records in 2 different pairs of shoes, different sizes. He found them in garbage.
Fascinating. Well, she may not be cis, going by this article, but don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is the Call to Freedom. And for those just tuning in, we've been having a discussion about Caster Semenya, who evidently is quite a sprinter. So much so that the IAAF, or the IAAF, whatever, has requested in the past, in 2009, that she undergo a sex verification test to ascertain whether she was female.
Ooh. How does this work?
I got a system.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, yeah, there's one way to do it. There's the obvious way, but I think
Castor would probably be a little offended about that.
Yeah, I think their inspection was a bit more scientific,
right?
Because it led to results that were never published officially, but some of which were leaked in the press, leading to claims that
kept my mouth shut, Castor.
In regard to what?
The sex verification test that I gave her.
Oh, fair enough. But it has led to claims about her having an intersex trait, probably being XXY or XXY most likely. But maybe you really like the show and have been wondering how you can help and show your support. Well, social media shares go a long way, but so does cash. And you can do that using Patreon at patreon.com/call-to-freedom. Our wonderful patrons there are currently helping to keep the show running, including the podcast at calltofreedomlive.podbean.com. And we can't thank them enough for showing their support. Once more, that's patreon.com/call-to-freedom if you would like to check it out. But if you would not like to check it out, just continue listening to our conversation about Caster Semenya, because it actually gets more screwed up as it goes, because she has been battling, and I've got to be honest, she does not look like a chick.
Yeah, I when I saw her picture, my first thought was, somewhere in the middle. Intersex is what I thought I said.
Is she keeping her hair short?
Yes.
Because that seems like counterproductive.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be a braid back there or something, right?
Yeah, it could be. But she does look like a dude. I can't say that she doesn't. I would not have sex with her.
Because she looks like a dude?
Yeah, I do not find her attractive.
What if the IAAF wanted you to do a sex verification test on her? Would you be willing to then? There's a governing body that's asked you.
Are they going to pay me?
Well, I mean, nobody does anything for free around here, do they?
Well, if they're going to pay me, sure.
All right. Well, there you go.
I would do that. So, but in 2010, this was following a bunch of records that she set in 2009.
This poor lady, I gotta say, this is so sad. Nobody else is going through this stuff, and she gets the test taken, and then what? Well, now some of the results have been leaked, and she's being questioned again and again and again.
Yeah, and it's pretty clear at this point that she's a woman. An ugly woman, but a woman nonetheless. Some sort of scientific test was done to verify that, but it did lead to accusations that she's got intersex traits.
Right, and so under my system, I wouldn't call it necessarily the women's league. I would call it some league, some other term, but you have to have just 2 X chromosomes in order to get into this particular league, and if not, you compete in the open league.
I don't see her doing very well in that particular league, though. I don't see, it's a fair point. She doesn't have
to be a winner.
No,
There's
she doesn't.
Lots of people that she's beating right now that aren't winners.
Right.
So.
But, I mean, that's essentially saying that she's doing too well, so we have to make her compete with the men.
I'm just trying to come up with a system that works. And the system,
well, it wouldn't work for her because she would go from being a winner to being a loser.
She's going to go from the system where she has an unfair advantage and whooping all the gals' asses
to where she has an unfair disadvantage.
She's just in the open division. And
where she would have an unfair disadvantage against the men who have XY chromosomes.
Yeah. She's competing. She's competing in the open. Do we need another league where the Freaks of Nature League, right? That people who have, whatever get tossed into. That seems a little expensive to maintain this, which largely people wouldn't compete in. And the women could compete in the open league. They wouldn't have to compete in XX. They'd just be the only ones qualified in competing in XX. I don't want to call them women necessarily because it's not proper terminology. The people with 2 X chromosomes and only 2 X chromosomes would be able to compete in that particular league, and then the rest of y'all can figure it out in open league. Good luck.
I guess that's one way to do it. I'm not sure that I actually have any other sort of solution.
No, I sure don't.
It's a mess, certainly. But if we go back in time, 150 years, and we have this before we had this technology to measure testosterone levels and things like that, and she was verified to be a woman of some description.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, they do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. So in this example,
walk up with a skirt on, and that'd be plenty.
Yeah. In this particular case, it seems like our technology is making the situation demonstrably worse over something that would have just gone on largely as normal.
It is complicating the situation, yes.
Yeah, because now we know that, XXY people exist and XYY people exist, presumably. I don't know. I'm not a biologist.
How could that happen?
I don't know.
Two sperm hit the same time, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not sure how XXY happens.
I think it's 2 sperm hit the same time.
Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert.
No.
It's not my field of expertise.
I hear lefties are just people that can twins that consume their other half.
Left-handed people?
Yeah, devil hand, as I prefer to call it. Yeah.
Interesting.
We should have a whole league for them.
I don't know if I believe that to be the case, that leftists are people who consume their other twin, but as I understand it, it is relatively common in pregnancies that something like that happens.
Yeah, I think that lefties have always consumed their other twin, and this is like very early on. I mean, we're talking in the zygote stage,
right?
But
Are you serious or are you trolling?
There's no.
Okay.
There's as many righties as lefties in the world. So if 10% of the population is a lefty, and I think the number's just about that, then another 10% is a righty that did the same thing.
Hold on, what?
All right.
Wait, what?
So there's 100% of people.
Right.
10% of them are lefties. All of the lefties consumed their other twin.
Okay.
10% of those people, not the 10% of the remaining, because it'd be more like 12 or 15%. I'm sorry, I can't do the math off the top of my head. But another 10% of people are righties that also consumed their other twin.
Okay.
It's just, in the case of the lefties, it always happened. In the case of the righties, it only happened 1 out of every 9 times.
On what do you base this?
Things I read on the internet.
It just seems really weird.
Well, I don't read normal things on the internet.
True.
Yeah, I leave that to you people.
I
don't know where you got that from, but it's probably from one of those banned Facebook pages.
Are you afraid that I've offended the lefties? She just called this poor athletic woman ugly.
Well, she is ugly.
Yeah,
I mean, that's an observable fact.
Right. The lefties are all proud of that, by the way. Chris Reitman standing back here, proud of the fact that he consumed his twin in the past.
Yeah. I mean, it's evolutionary at that point. He, very early in his life, he did battle.
Yeah, he won.
He fought another living organism, and he won. So, yeah, man, be proud.
You know, I don't have any problem with lefties per se. It's just them breeding that really is the problem. So then they go and then they have children, and they teach them the wrong way to do everything because, I don't know, they're living in some mirror reality where they're using the wrong hand and stuff. And those kids, they are then going out into the world poorly prepared for life because their parents, I don't know, disabled, living in the wrong dimension. Or something.
Did you really just call left-handed people disabled?
Oh, my mother's left-handed. I have a whole shtick. I haven't even gone through half of my repertoire here.
Awesome. Great way to end the show, I suppose. I've never heard anyone put forward the idea, though, that left-handed people ate their twins or consumed their twins or however it was that you phrased it.
Pleading ignorance now isn't going to do you any good. It's already on the air.
Oh, I know it's on the air.
It's out there in the airwaves.
Yes, on the internet.
You have now let the lefty hater on the show. Bet you're as bad as Ian and his Nazi friend that he's constantly trying to get on the air. I don't know. I mean, done everything but mail him to the White House.
So, this is the first time I've ever heard that. It sounds like something that Alex Jones would come up with.
How is the first time you were on the show with the Nazi? You know that he's been on the air here. I'm probably talking into the same mic muff.
Well, I know that. Yeah,
it's been washed. Though,
I didn't know
right?
we had changed subjects.
Hope so.
Yeah, I know that the Nazi has been on the air.
Or Nazis, where are you going?
Yeah, fair point. But I was referring to leftists, and that I had never heard that before.
Lefties, not leftists.
Okay, lefties.
I didn't propose killing all the lefties.
Did you? Only the leftists? We can't end on that note. We should not kill all the leftists or the lefties. This is the Call to Freedom. Don't go anywhere, though, because Free Talk Live is coming up next.
With Mark.